Okay, we're gonna get started with the recitations. No. Jumbo, Jonde, de Shebo, Jumbo, Yambo, Zobe, Sanje, Ribo, Jasu, de Orchibo, Jide, Jembo, Jew, Due, Kalu, Lana, Mebo, Hada, Minaji, Jumbo, Sanje, Jonde, Benje, Shaja, Tubo, Chaze, Chudu, Jazu, Jew. Jumbo, Jonde, de Shin, Shibo, Rajumbo, Yandabo, Zobe, San, Rebo, Don, Shazu, Dembo, Devora, Shibo, Jide, Jiwo, Dube, Kalu, Jubo, Lana, Mebo, Lada, Menaji, Dumbo, Sanji, Jonde, Benje, Shaja, Tubo, La, Chaze, Lo, Judo, Jazu, Je. Dōmbō jōndēn dē dēshī shēbō rāchōmbō yāntāmbō dzōbē sācī rēbō dā shāsū dēmbō rā dēwā rā jīdēn jēmbō jēwō dēwē kālō nyūbō lānā mēbō lānā mēnā dōmbō sācī jōndēn dē bē jēwō shācā tūbō lā chācī chēdō chāsū chē wō Kanze gani sowo je dante saje de la gobo dumbo mane jige de na cho je zo de ze je wo cho lo cha nanda bo wa cho do zo za wa ye je ja zo se je lo mo Khapa je de zo la la me wa gobo chi ni je lo cha Sejo dembo jime dave jo sendo chawa chelo cha. Dude jena seba suna chi nyame chunyi chelo cha. Gombo duje jendembo tamje jebe dembo. Sona yende jazo je deshi shelo cha. Tabe deja jewara ju gewe nyezo le ro. Edo de don jeju bo shinju je la cha. Rone trove la ya de la ba da la rabdu. Shinje damba yende de gendu la ya cha. De ba je ya me ja shin je wa pusum so Rangi semne yonzo du tene sanje tenpa Kama re mame dan juma seba chu Melo loda jinda bo duje chena didarda Sona di tamje seba ye goba tene jeje radu Kada nada chive lapchule
Sibe sole drova show.
The founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the co-destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sagata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of God and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer, shocking man, when a supreme among humans, you were born, you face out 7 scribes, then said, I'm supreme in this world. Do you, my wise, with your bodies formed supremely pure, with emotion like the golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds. Whenever the best Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior and the great compassion, the founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you and one God to the purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one that the sublime pure reality of that dharma which pacifies by prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path of the liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community containing virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is a teaching of the Buddha. A star, the flame of the lamp, a dream, deconditioned things outside. Through these merits, the ascension beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the flow of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death. Khapa kunjo soma cha zelo deke dake toba duje na jonde ne jebu ka changu kumbu gelonji gindu chenpo da chanju senpe gindu chenpo da Khapa jendo jode de ze jonde ne samo na wa shi jawe chulye na da Pengen zela nyobo shuzo ya di ze chanju senpa senpa Khapa chere ze wanjo shero je paru do chenpa samo jeba nila nambara tashi kumbu ngabo de ta Rachen je toba namba tau tene sanje je tu tsedan denpa sheri pu Yanju senpa senpa chenpo Khapa chere ze wanjo la deke che meso riji pu Kala la sherab je paru do chenpa samo jeba chuba deba de te tarala paracha Deke je mekwa da chanju senpa senpa chen Khapa chere ze wanju je sedan denpa sheri dade bola deke je meso sheri pu Reje pom reje pomo kala la sherab je paru do chenpa samo jeba chuba deba de te da namba tawa chade Kumbo ngabo de da la Shashin je tomba namba yanda ba jesu tao Shu tomba ni su su dole tomba ni shema Tomba ni le jang su je ma yin no De shen do tsuwa dan du shi dan du ji dan Nambar sheba na tomba Shari bu de da kyo dan je tomba ni de Senye me ba ma je Ma ka ba tima me ba tima dan Trewa me ba kangwa me ba o Sharibu de dawana tomba nila sume sowa me duji Namba sheba me mime nawa me name cheme lume ime sume rame Rome reja me chume do mije kame bane ije kame ije nambara shebe kanje bado yame do Mariba seba me kashi sebe bado yame do tejen do donge wada Obadan lame ishe me toba me mado baya me do
Sharibu Teno Anju Sambo Na Toba Mebe Shir Sharaji Parudo Chimbala Tenji Nete Semla Tiba Mesi Traba Shindo Dene Nangele Debe Taru Chindo Tuzondo Nombre Shube Sanje Kamji Kyang Sharaji Parudo Ala Tene Lana Meba Yanda Bazobe Chanju Dungo Parazoba Sanje Sote Dawana Sharaji Parudo Chimbenga Vipa Chimbenga Lana Mebenga Minyambala Nyambenga Dunga Danje Radu Shivar Jebenga Mizubana Demba Sheba Jade Shiraji Parudo Chimbenga Meba Teyata Kade Paragade Parasangade Budi So Sharibu Chanju Samba Samba Eda Shiraji Parudo Chimba Samola Labar Revo Dene Chonde Tengi Tele Ajo Samba Samba Jimbo Papa Chirese Onjula Leso Shijawa Leso Leso Rigi Pu Tede Shido Tede Shide Shida Juji Temba Shido Shiraji Parudo Samola Jebra Jade Deji Jeba Namyan Jesu Gira Chonde Tegi Tegi Ka Seda Temba Shere Dade Buddha Janju Samba Samba Jembo Papa Chere Te Wanchula Kamje Da Tembe Kora De Da Meta Ama Yeda Jisa Jebe Jide Chonde Deji Sumba La Ngomba De To
Thus I have heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgrita on Vulture's Beak, together with the great assembly of monks and bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena while profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahatattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhira, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, how should those of good family learn who wish to follow the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhira? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhira, look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formation, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are none of the spirit of the mind. There are none of these all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these all the way up to there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all bodhisattvas fall to the wisdom found beyond. And because there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times, by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awakened to unsurpassed, most perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as the truth, where there is no deception. The mantra of the wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed. Sayata Gati Gati Paramati Parasati Swaha. Oh, Shariputra, this is how our Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, very good, son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom Gambhyan should be practiced exactly as you have said, and then the Tathagata. When the Blessed One said this, the noble Lama yeah, in the world of the God, men, and the God spirits, their hearts full of joy. Praise the words of the Blessed One. So ends the noble discourse on the essence of the wisdom Gambhyan.
That in another that in Mangabu, politics, got 6 to us. Then go Papa Ludu, so less such. Then go Papa Ludu, so less. Can she send her in Gentebati, you chava giba? Hevejan, can she mirror Jen and Digbele? Giba in the Chinjilu Balas, oh, yes, I did Kumbuludu soon on that. And it did soon your resonance.
In the beginning of the 5th day of Kabonka Rinpoche's teaching on the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, he quotes from the illustrious Nagarjuna. It is stupid to discard disgusting filth into a golden jeweled container. It is even more stupid for a person to sin after being born a human.
Oh, to 세상 되게 다식 되게 아니 당한 꿀웅치도 송구야 레스제단다 달랭 아람절 다 빼놨다 뒤빼대 당보지 시에 빼대 가서나 간시 아니 다 수술라랑라 아니 세르기 네 첨부제 대야가 림부제게 다 도지 발람다 되네 유다 주로 모델로서 버테르 네 첨부 이제 랑라 여바이나스 안디 배주마다는 샤바이나 아니 배마스가 방부 제바다 아니 안디 배주 땅가 이나양 배주디 아니 지 밖에 미장와 유야라 소바다 아니 제 미장와 루야라 소바 네데 제바이나 아니 가랑 기된 감나다 고 이디 시우지 꾸버를 샤스 고 신기미도 가르스나 고베네 자친보데 지 배주마다 아주 돌아왔던 게 도스 This
verse from Nagarjuna describes the proper way to adjust one's intention. The metaphor begins with the comparison of a human rebirth to a vessel. And the vessel, a precious vessel, one made of gold, studded with diamonds and pearls, very large. If it were to be left unused, leaving it unused would be an embarrassment. But even more so, if it were used, but used for garbage, for trash, what we'd say of such a person who used it that way would be, this person's a fool, this person's truly stupid, look how they use a precious vessel in this way.
Oh, yeah. That today, called Yunzendo, the Karsakone, Zachambu Yimbatan, Kola, the Rana Deva Tovia Yubachik Deva Tomajuba Chebe, Yunzen Tela Tene, and a called Medida, Janang Bech Shingimi to Kubar Jaslava was. Oh, you did Yunzen Teyinas, and a Kanshi Merican, Digbeles, Kiba Tene Chijil Lumbalas, which is that Delegi, and a Betzachewa, Dilejan, and a Bekechewa, and Aranzula Yote, Tejog, Miluzachabudi. And around Talent Milutikini, and a Jawama to Tiba Dubayina, and a Telejan, Lumba, Teleja, Pecher Pangba, the Chagi or Resonance.
The reasoning is the vessel is precious. The vessel is precious. The precious human rebirth is precious. Using it, one may enjoy satisfaction and contentment. Failing to use it, one will be denied contentment. And so a person who has this precious vessel, who doesn't use it, would be called stupid, a fool. That's the reasoning. And this is the metaphor that continues. It is stupid to discard disgusting filth into a golden jeweled container. It is even more stupid for a person to sin after being born human. We have inherited a precious human rebirth, and we have it now, and it is all the more precious and sacred compared to an ordinary vessel. We have inherited it, and if inheriting it, instead of engaging in virtue, we engage in non-virtue, this would be truly an embarrassment.
Oh yeah, that in the Indu. Around the Peja second knew the Dow Yimbayina, and of course, Tapshich in your and yeah, your Troya, your Karina, your was. That a lang around you Miludi, and Chignoya, your mother, Yaya, your mother, Troya, your mother, around you. Soon number Tabachi, Masunane, Migilu, Togumare, and a Jinsota, Chibata, Sulu, Savala Soba, that trauma, Jinani, and a church of Tre Togumare, said that the day you do. Juice, but she would catch him with the sun, the lang around the Milu Cheparch, the day top there, but the Rangi Shem, but she was last month.
Following the metaphor of the vessel, an ordinary vessel, a precious vessel, but ordinary one, may be stolen, it may be borrowed, it may be coercively taken, it may be gotten in any number of ways. But there's no buying, there's no coercively taking, there's no selling of the precious human rebirth. Only through outstanding ethical discipline and the practice of the perfections, generosity, patience, energetic discipline, and the rest, will one ever have the fortune of encountering the Dharma. And so it is this incredibly fortunate cause that precedes the inheritance of the precious human rebirth.
Oh, yeah, that and they could Miluza Chambuti, and yeah, Tring, Maranzolo, Tobar, Suzulo, Tobiore, and Italian Peju Mata Yanjo, and Maranzola, Jana Yandu, Paget, the Tabaras, Milu Tobiat, the Yuba Yinayan, and yeah, Masu somebody was down chore. Tia Yomares, Milus and the land church was Yomare, Lembalo, you, Sudum, Sobas, the Chinso Paris to go today. So the chef was Google, that they knew that Talanga not to a melody, and it chooses the Madua, and in Yimbulan to was go your resonance.
Today, at this moment, we can recognize that we have inherited a precious human rebirth. To fail to use it now, and to imagine instead that again and again, continuously, we will be presented with the opportunity like this, the opportunity of a precious human rebirth, that gets us started thinking in a new way. Is that even guaranteed, the continuous and repeated encounter with the precious human rebirth? And the answer is no, it is not. Ethical discipline is the cause, and it is supported by the 6 perfections. When these are present, one inherits a precious human rebirth, but this is rare, so one mustn't squander it. That is the heart of the matter.
Oh, to say, and they use a mata, Talanga Milu Kineta, Karichibur, Chituya, Karichibur, that to a deres, to a delta, indeed, around the Milu Kineta, Lega, Tunda Chushu, Cheba Ina Yang, Rangi, Milu Kini, Chiachima Yasondri, Kim Mogoya, Yason Tarbachea. That in it till it sounds tell Yagado Chigina and Koala Kim or Koala Tarbachea. Oh, yeah, that and then on the Chanju sing Chanju Lamrim, the love then that Chekoya, the Karsana, another to watching butcher that tray or it. To watching butcher that Chanju Lamji Rimbala that, then there's some Chigi Yoba Yindu, and then Mazu that we use the Karesna. And then that Rangi, Rang, they ought to be turned to some of Matamache. And it's in J. Tamji Rangi, Mana Zubek, this in J. Tamji, the other Dema, to make the travel chair. All the Tabla lovers Sebati, and that you would Chimbo Lamji Basta, and you Lamji Bala love with me to the response.
So then, inheriting the precious human rebirth, what must we do? The smallest purpose that we may take as ours, having inherited a precious human rebirth, is to annul the future rebirth in lower realms, to liberate ourselves from rebirth in the lower realms. A greater purpose would be to annul rebirths in cyclic existence generally, in samsara generally, to liberate ourselves from the bondage of cyclic existence. But the greatest purpose, having inherited the precious human rebirth, is to practice the Mahayana Dharma, the very path of the Bodhisattvas, that which we are engaged in inquiry into now. And this practice entails a leaving behind of prejudice and pathological self-love, and the adoption of concern and investment in the well-being of sentient beings, that they may enjoy contentment and be freed from suffering, and to train in the means for assuring this. This is the heart of the Mahayana Dharma.
하디 인도 가나도 꿀웅 가르쳐 버렸으나 나도 꿀웅 해치죠들랑 원도 꿀웅 아는 것이 군주니 열었어. 세상다 담보 꿀웅데 가르스나다 장주가 남들 심발을 놓고야 돼. 아니 장주 남들 심발은 셰백이다. 즉파게 남들 귤라 깨야게 치도라 내 남들 로비 인산다 꿀웅데 고그레스. 세상다 군주디 아니 군주도 가르스나다 라베데 지소 벌도 심벌 두고 쪄발라 라베데
What is the intention then that conforms with this Mahayana Dharma outlook? It is an intention and an activity. The intention is the preliminary establishment of intention. The action is the undertaking itself. In training in the great treatise in the stages of the path to enlightenment, the purpose of which is to develop realization in one's own mind, the intention to precede this is the commitment to train in the stages of the path so that realization is in fact realized. And then this is enacted through training and practicing the six perfections.
Oh, yeah, that big kulunda kunju rembatela lavag and some Chitolata, Tambo Chudi, Lavag Chudi, Modero Chebayina, Church Anjulam was singing and Labu Candesana, Anjulam was singing and Kendi was Sanjay Sala Drag. And that Lamsnada, Chilupsina, or the Chadiores, and the young Kundo Candetursna, and Sanjay ne my Juni, and Java Penduda. Tamjegi, and Pagachu, Suma Machine, Chiba Lambda Lamsu Chiba. And it's a packet around the Lamidi, Vivek, Goto, George, and Jubeke, and Katambi, Lama Commandamji, and that Yams Layag, and that Nimbuti Yimba, and Tondasu do not Sanjig Sumbe Chum Yidishidon. They take Nimbu Tamji to do the Rusin and Yams Laya by Shebeke. And they dig Chedela, and Chanju Lamri Chambos, Mengta, and thing also Yams Langi or Resort.
This twofold activity of the intention and then the actual undertaking and activities, these follow from an exposure to an introduction to the Dharma itself, the Dharma that is the path of the very Bodhisattvas. This tradition and this path is the very path tread by the fortunate sons of the Buddha, tread by the fortunate sons of the Buddha to the very ground of Buddhahood itself. This is the tradition, and it finds its support and basis in the Buddha Vachana that has passed from the Buddha himself through innumerable pundits who have taught in conformity with the intention of the Buddha in the very same tradition as the Buddha. And this passed on to, for us, the lineage holder of Joel illustrious Atisha, who was a progenitor of the Kadampa adepts. And they have distilled the essence of practice of 84,000 heaps of the Buddha Vachana. And these are practiced and realized and presented in the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, which we practice now.
Oh, yeah, that indeed, Church and to just want to church Yams Lambert and the culture was not. Lama Chitati and Basta, some give the Temple Casate, so Sanjay Sala, Drag, Lambda, Labdang. Called the Shion to Zabani, subjects that, and the call of Sidan, and subjects our subject Shina and that Shibati. Tambango, Loma Chitati, Bas, and that subject Shiva. Oh, that in a ending of the Jessica or restaurant.
This Buddha Dharma presented to the disciples to be tamed, to be practiced by the disciples to be tamed, follows from the taxonomy of the great treatise on stages of the path to enlightenment, the fourth section of which concerns itself with how to lead students with the actual instructions This is the fourth of the major sections of the treatise, and where we are arrived now.
Oh yeah, that is subject Shiva dile nangsik saje patesen ni subject ni pache. Ani lamji tawa shinyi tembe tsudan ten lo chidar jan. Loma chidar tu verin badela lamji tawa shinyi tembe ten chidar lo chang tsu sen subject ni na la ni that lamri charan de shi kyung yo reso.
This fourth major section has two further subsections. The major heading is how to lead students with the actual instructions. The two subsections are how to rely on the teacher, the root of the path, and the stages of how the students train their minds after they have relied on the teacher.
Oh yeah, that shinyi tenzu de la yang ngondo da ngoshi jo ngondo che ngoshi che ani juksum yebe nane da ngondo jowe churu da ngodo kazan deshi gyapte tüzü de res jowe churu nane da ngodo kazan jowe chu tambosum di ani ngodo deshi da rob shu tsembare somo.
How to rely upon the spiritual mentor, the teacher, the root of the path, has three parts. Naturally, the preliminary, the actual meditation, and the conclusion. Within the preliminary, there are 6 preliminary practices, the first 3 of which we have already addressed.
That's Jovechu Shiva. That Jovechu Shiva, that's Karesana. Jovechu Shiva, any so Sing said the boss. So we Sing said the boss, and that subject, Judan, that's soon to turn the subject, mix a kitchen which in the so subject, so to too much chat the others. What is that Jove? That Tambokas Jovechu Subbuti. Kapsulaya, that Jambo that the Chagan Shetana Yan, they so sing Sabluji, a kitchen which in the subject suited to the Shekwati, and it nature Bushra your response.
Now, this fourth preliminary rite, is petitioning the merit field. Petitioning the merit field is taken as a section unto itself, and this reflects its importance. Preceding it, within the third preliminary rite, one engages in refuge and development of the exceptional mind. This is then followed by petitioning the merit field. It is its own section, and this reflects its great importance.
Oh, yeah, it is a matter, they can just not that. And that Chanji Lauri Chimbuti, and then Chetsonga Pachibu Zebars, that Jerum Changi. Any subject is so to turn Jenny. Any Jovechu Tudan, any subject Shivadi, and it's Soshin set up a so quietly, Junsendo Paresnata. Any Tandatang around the Pagay Tuba Yinayang, and it's Rangi Pay Sima to Jetoya. Turn Samba Yinayang, and it turn Mahoya. And Gom Java Yinaya, and Julia, my Java Chiagi, Gendo, the Carchevres. Senang around the log to the log new budget, this Hazangi. Log new body shoot Chinju, new but Chinju. And they do, and it hung around the Tapshe career is not that shingy to the tenny. And another Pagashi, Soshin said about Shingi Tula ten any Yamne Chebayina, any that Lap Chimbo, Pendo Chimbo, you would say, and its subject is to the temper.
What is the purpose of this section then, set aside as it is and made so prominent? Tsong Khapa composed the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, and he made this decision to deal with the petitioning of the merit field in its own section, reflecting its great importance. It is the fourth of these 6 preliminary practices. So what justifies its prominence in this way? When we listen to the Dharma, when we tend to forget it, when we contemplate the Dharma, yet fail to penetrate it, when we meditate upon the Dharma and fail to realize it, there must be something hindering us. In order to intensify, strengthen, fortify the mind that it may be penetrative, we need some method to further promote our intelligence and our sensitivity. And it is this petitioning the merit field that is designed to increase one's ability to comprehend the Dharma. And so then we recognize its great significance in that this is its purpose.
Oh yeah, 제가 저럼 지금 식 갈수나 신기 툴라 템바 맹아이 송 신기 툴라 템바데 아니 답에 담가지 개침부 갑자기 예나면데 이스 제가 다디 가르치네서나 알아서 가르치나다 통만 매봤네 아니 레기 바자 티바 투보 알아서 생각나라 배 바자가 배 뚱네 아니 부부가 뚱네 아니 다 간단하게 töba inayang töbe siksimma tuba samba inayang ani chishi tömögowa bomba inayang yula toba majiba dege tapjo 하나도 be utube kaptu dila ani da 신기 툴라 때네 아니 소사 직장 제바이나 신기 툴라 때는 소아때 받아 아니 소사 직장 제바이나 아니 toba yula ge야다 아니 간다르다 tö베게 퇴중기 실업제, 삼중기 실업제, 본중기 실업제하게 아니 다 매도 중화돼 여바대 아니 송화래서 놓자.
The illustrious Tsong Khapa said this: the extraordinary efficacy of the merit field is the special oral instruction. From beginningless time, we have been wrapped up and strangled by the karma klesha, the mental afflictions and negative deeds for which we are responsible. And this is what hinders us when we listen, we fail then to recall what we've listened to. When we contemplate the Dharma, we fail to comprehend its meaning. When we meditate, yet we fail to develop realization. We are hindered by these karma klesha, and then these desperate straits for us. We must engage in the accumulation of merit, confession, and purification. These practices are the supreme method for developing realization, for developing the wisdom of listening, for developing the wisdom of contemplation, and for developing the wisdom that arises from meditation.
Oh yeah, 아니 대대 임바디다 아니 저럼제다 고랑기 대대기 다신기 툴라 때네 아니 또번유도 제가 쿵도도 간데 숨고서 고랑기 냠낸 나도 아니 지도 잠배양라 아니 고랑기 저슈베 아니 저슈베 랜들 아니 가르나서 아니 다 저어디 가르나 또번유도 제베 아니 다탑 가릴라 보레스 저어디야 슈거라 디 랜들은 지도 잠배양 가르스나 사다 라마 예매를 소화됩스 라마 사 예매를 소화됩스라서 라마다 이담 예매를 소화됩스 아니 직제 아니 소사 지정로 배바제 아니 년내 민남 좀 어디숨 냠도 지니 냠내 제바이나 아니 또바 유도 제에서 어디 랜드 마티 송해서
Somebody, menga somebody.
년내 민남 줄을 좀 왔어
민남.
민남 또 배당하고 다 민남 수정하고 동반이 오늘 다또 동반이로 와. 다 단다 뒤가서다 나 그냥 저지는 아니 다 간다를 사기 시대다 신라선 되게 땡기지. 그래서 아나도 조림 지야가 더 어디다 민남 단다 뒤가도라. 지단 민남 교야들 동반이 지고라고 자주스 거니가 여러 와. 민남 교라 좀 민남 좋아서도 땡기지 거 같더라.
So the illustrious Tsong Khapa, when he said that the special oral instruction for the development of realization is reliance upon the power of the merit field, his justification for announcing this was the direct instruction he had received from Manjushri when he posed the question to Manjushri. The question was, how can it be assured that realization comes swiftly? What is the best method for assuring this? In response, Manjushri said that to petition the Guru and the Yidam indivisibly, seen as one, is the first method. The second method is to engage in strenuous activities of purification, confession, and accumulation. And the third method is to extend the object of meditation, meaning principally the object emptiness, so that shamatha and vipassana are made singular and samadhi is achieved.
Oh yeah, that is some yamdo su jini gomba chena and toba jedi chik sung wa zida de yimbe kung de la ani that al de kung sim de that hango de that sosa jang dang sosa jang chena sosa jang chena yumin ba cheba chik che yang de shi ni yang ju de de shi dan sosa yumin ba cheba che so what the ani chinji la bas sosa jang rangi yumin ba che so what the chinji la bas oh dini chinji la bas chilab shuwa ni di mena 아니 땡에서 고바 치고 채나 아니 땡에서 도바 줄에 깨야게 탑 시라 껴버려 깨 투고 말해서 어디서 그래서
These three methods together ensure swift realization. The support or justification for this is, first of all, the activities of accumulation and purification ripen the continuum of the practitioner. And when the Yidam and the Guru are petitioned, this brings blessings to the mind of the adept. Without these two, accumulation and purification, that ripens the mind stream, and without the petition that blesses the mind stream, there's no conceivable means for the completion of the achievement of samadhi.
Oh yeah. 아니 뒤에 이바디다 주 멤버잖아. 랑이 주도 소사 집장이 주야 오면이나 아니 같이 방법을 깔래 방법을 떼어 먹고 버치네. 또 봐 뉴도 제투를 했어. 아니 다디 빼도 송주도 가려서나 나랑도 수불해야지. 님부로 마도 템바이나 나디 코 나디 야고지 마디 최소나 아니 마 떼도 좀 깔래시라 매와서 떼어 두고 도왔어. 세고서
Tati mati zona,
Ma söz da ni burada mi burtu do ma burada tu do tödü zaman koge ma diye minjin na diye bu sa sona na ma dönşana anladım sen çağırdı guru o dina 신체 아니 dina 신 아주 동북간의 신도도 이거 미면은 고마 사그 말와 민서나 아니 권하나 주 상호도 dina 신 소사 주장당 소화도 규야고 민서나 아니 또봐 남산 제 이렇게 투그래서 이 소가를 자다 아니 뭐게 손대고 소화되고 명아도 소화되고 되면은 아니 주민을 지투고 말은 주민을 지마도나 아니 다 걸 또봐 제 답이요 말와 어디서 거
Without a ripened mind stream, realization seldom arises. This is illustrated through metaphor. When one has a wound, one has a pustule. The pustule isn't likely to heal unless it is drained. And when it is drained, then it can heal. Similarly, when a fruit is hard, tough, and yet unripe, it's difficult to eat. But when the fruit ripens, then it may be easily eaten. And so in order for realization to arise swiftly in the mind, first the mind must be ripened. If it is yet to ripen, then realization seldom arises.
근데 임바데 아니 제름쟁이 캔에 아니 제름적 고랑 가르쳐 버렸으나 아니 내가 수수기 직파게 곰냠내 제야다 아니 다 직파게 기루로 쳐라베도 강가 잠시하네 아니 고랑 냠내 술도 소사트자 침베 루규 남들 술도 충한데 아니 아주 하나도라데 미베때 치도 안 도시나 해서
Qualities ripen as fruits ripen. And so it is through the power of purification and accumulation and then petition that the mind stream itself is ripened. And then the mind stream may be utilized, it may be enjoyed. Tsong Khapa engaged in, made an example of himself through his engagement in meditation and his pausing his Dharma instruction that he would give to his disciples, and then his retreat into isolation for the purpose of strenuous practice.
딱 한달 그런 게 아니 소사지면 가르치나 요스나 딱 한달 아니 내 엠발라 치니 아니 그런 딱 개치셔들라 아니 차다 문제 저그 원로 차다 문제 사바나 요레스 아니 니안 차다 문제들 다 차빈다 변화 동 문제다 동샤도 딱 산지 숨주 성하게 장다 냠바 몸 숨주 성하 어디에 별로 가시나는 깔리자면 배랑이 류기 좋아 첨부치는 깔려 첨부 되게 교연치는 아니 간다 유미 뭐지 아니 유미 산에 아니 신에 또 받게 되는 남자만 뭐 여래서는
For the purpose of strenuously engaging in purification and accumulation, Tsong Khapa withdrew into isolation and practiced primarily prostration and the offering of world mandalas. These were preliminary practices that he engaged in, and in the practice of prostration and the offering of world mandalas, he offered 35 sets of 100,000 prostrations to the 35 confession sutra Buddhas. And this was for the purpose of ripening his continuum, which he did, and there are countless stories of this process.
yeah, that in a Koran 조획이 냠내 되게 비타고 주주 튼튼나라 나한테 주바 체네 아니 신의 가르쳐서는 권한을 아니 바바야 생각이 시에스보다 아니 돈이게 따와 줄을 총받아 어디서 간가 아니 루주다 디네스네 냠내 차네 아니 디네 따고 줄을 제베게 아니 남들 따노 그 술도 티거든요 망고 열에서
Through these preliminary practices undertaken in this period for him, this caused a vision, the vision of Nagarjuna and Nagarjuna's three principal disciples. After this vision, through this vision, Tsong Khapa realized the view of emptiness, and there are accounts, biographical accounts of this extraordinary process. This practice by Tsong Khapa produced realization in the mind of this illustrious Tsong Khapa, and there are stories, accounts of this process.
Oh yeah, that in a Koran that tobachiagi. 아니 that 조획이 추되게 냠낸 사사는 Koran that Buddha Palita signi. 아니 Buddha Palita 수술에다 중앙을 시고바 근데 수술을 나와주나 Buddha Palita sig Buddha Palita 자산시 아니 Buddha Palita 답하게 다간다 라지 접제기 저와 틀리도 아니 오메가 따와 다 제시께가도 시온데 아니 Koran 툴라 아니 다 산지장 모수 제바다 아니 산지장게 아니 제베 Buddha Palita 아니 랑게 세바탄 텔라테네 아니 Buddha Palita게 다 동반이게 제시키면요 이낭신 아니 툴라 총바다 동반이게 따와 줄라 총바스 오 다디 저럼 제가 남다나 소리도 지어래서
In the process of the arising of realization in the mind stream of the illustrious Tsong Khapa, which followed from his own practices in preliminaries, was consummated by vision of Buddha Palita, the great pundit and commentator in the Madhyamaka tradition. It was a vision of Buddha Palita and an encounter with the 18th chapter of his commentary, the Buddha Palita, a commentary concerned with exposition of the subtlety of the middle way view. Encountering Buddha Palita, the recommendation to review the 18th chapter, review of the 18th chapter, this process produced for Tsong Khapa the final realization of the view of emptiness. The view of emptiness arose in the extraordinary mind stream of Tsong Khapa. And so there are chapters concerned with this extraordinary event in his biographies.
Oh, yeah. That demo what Jeremy and it's so that the general Mabe Ponla. Any Koran that okay. Quebec singing Chadan Shetar, Kachingi. Quebec singing Chadan Shetar, Buddha Pulita Mola Sixar, Hineyan, and the Tombani Jula Matumbe, Sud Sungores, that name Sosa Tijana, Pet Savage Jella, and then Buddha Palita Sig. And then see when any Momag see what a Minjawa, Tombani get turned. That's where the Koran Kadu, that Jedi. That don't need to most dance like it. The Kadula sick over Yobata. And it's signature and Lamsa top of Jula Kiwa to Zukanga. King Courage Everson, Sosa to Jan Cheva Digi Wangi, and it's what. Or the Luisa response.
Now, before Tsong Khapa withdrew and undertook these strenuous practices in purification and accumulation, he was already well familiar with Buddha Palita and with the commentarial tradition and the Madhyamaka. Yet he hadn't realized the full view of emptiness. It was following practice of purification and accumulation that Tsong Khapa encountered, had a vision of Buddha Palita, learned that he must review the subtlety of the exposition of the middle way, and then through reviewing the 18th chapter of Buddha Palita's, the commentary of Buddha Palita, which concerns itself explicitly with the view of emptiness. Upon review of this chapter, the view of emptiness arose in the mind stream of the extraordinary Tsong Khapa, and it was the result of the strenuous practices of purification and accumulation. This is the story, the account found in the biography of Tsong Khapa.
Oh, yeah, that the Jerem Jiggy, Tower, Jula, Sumbegi, Nizu Carson, Lamri, the Zababu, Jerem Jay, and Dig Namdar Tone, was and the Jerem Jella Suares. In by Nayada, Lamri to use Sunduna, and Lamri, Lami, Jubi Namdar, to you Lamas of Sunjan and the Sungu or Sunduzamba, and what in the Kandata, Sosat Jan Chene, and it only Tower Jula Jebagata, Luju Namdar Lama Mango Yores. The Lamrim Koran George Shiruzamba, and a Laman Namda Shaker, Namda Shiru, and Kinyam Doda. And the Jerem Luju Sheba Nashi, and Lamashimba Mangola, the Tower Tumba, Luju Mango, your response.
A view of emptiness arose in the extraordinary mind of Tsong Khapa for the reason of his having practiced strenuously accumulation and purification. And because the illustrious Tsong Khapa is the author of the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, the text with which we are concerned, we mention this now. And in the tradition of teaching in the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, the stages in the path to enlightenment, it is customary for teachers to present the various biographies of the lineage lamas in that very tradition, stories similar to the story of Tsong Khapa's own realization, stories that involve the engagement in purification and accumulation that then results in the development of realization. And there are countless stories of other gurus in the very same tradition who have engaged in the preliminary practices of purification and accumulation, and like Tsong Khapa, for whom the ultimate view has arisen in their minds too. And because we are concerned with the great treatise, we mentioned these biographies.
Oh, to that, and that Laman Namda Sugar, 간단하면 남다 될라 때는 rangi 냠네 지수 셰바치 총거레스 제가 리드 간단하게 주민 아니 또고 젤라와 유바게 아니 냠네 나와래 나올 때는 루규도 총거레스 대나신 거는 주민 버초나 아니 또고 유도 껴바게 아니 게 망고 먹고 게 춘주기 돈에 또고 유도 껴봐 유바 아니 당한테 배다 루규 전에 송구 열에서 뭐
These biographies of lineage gurus present the rationale itself for engaging in preliminary practices of purification and accumulation, and so that we too may engage in them, so that we too may ripen our own minds such that we can swiftly develop realizations ourselves. So these biographical accounts of the illustrious lineage lamas are presented. When one has ripened one's own mind, then one has to engage in fewer of the austerities and hardships in order to develop realization. So the purpose of these stories of preliminary practices and the results.
어두세 근데 이게 가담기 단 중국어데 여름도 바로 여름도 밖에 로마디 제지 보도 왔다 부시 보도 왔어 가담기 라마다 여름도 밖에 기도 나는 다 저도 집어지러와 기시 보도 하고나 기도 망보여래 기도 망보여면은 너무 랑을 캐봐 수수도 또 받냐마 기시 더보 와서 기시 더보 와서 그런게 그래서 오스나 아니 소소보다 집어정와 하다 라마 예면은 소와 되나 소 위다보지 내버이나 아니 윤대 탐지 렌데기 nengi kiawres suzugu pe ta nge chitusa mare nge yonsa mare pe tikta nyamne de che lo jaz chine nge chesa mare samge de gi nyamne yin ba ina yang ani sosa chemja gyumi ba chona ani to bo yutu kewa pe de tundil ke to ba yoba de yores karsna ko ke tugu yobati yengi ongi yongor dujeres duje yen de sende ani ko metaware 내다가 이리 아니 그 기지기 교어도 그렇지다 근데 이리 아니 조사 조사다 늘 때네 아니 간다 냠내 유미 봐서나 아니 로잘 마제버기 된대야 아니 그 뒤뒤들 게 두고래서 그 균생 그랬으나 아니 그 깨나 뛰어버리 깨니 미다가 인다 그 요어도 요래서 어디에 송요래서
So this tradition of realization travels down through the Kadampa lineage, through the principles in that tradition, Dromtompa, who had himself many students, including Potoa. Supreme among his students was Geshe Potoa. Potoa too had countless students, countless disciples who themselves developed realization, among whom was Geshe Dopoa. And Geshe Dopoa's oral instruction was to, through petitioning the indivisible Guru and Yidam, develop good qualities, all good qualities. For the petitioning of the Guru and the Yidam, indivisibly one, is for the purpose of ripening the continuum so that good qualities may swiftly arise. They so swiftly arise that for an individual who engages in these petitions, at the outset, they may wonder to themselves, I can't possibly, even in 100 years' time, come to possess these good qualities that I aspire for. However, through the process of purification and accumulation, such is the power of these practices of purification and accumulation, that the good qualities unimaginable in 100 years' time may arise very swiftly. And this is for the reason that these qualities are themselves compounded phenomena. As all compounded phenomena rely upon causes and conditions for their arising and are impermanent and therefore ever-changing, through the condition of purification and accumulation, the mind ripens, and in the mind, qualities that were unimaginable in 100 years may arise swiftly. Such is the nature of compounded phenomena that are naturally impermanent.
Oh, this is that in the Indian Tanga, the Lama Homatsu, that Lama Homas, the Kadam Lama. Tanga Kadam Sawa Nimba, Kanga in by that and Tanga to you, Karis words, na. That Sosa Trijanda, so debat mena, and a collegialis, na. Land that seven Nashiores. Land that Tangazunyam, Sosa to some Majevache, and it take for so debat the mena, and Ranging Yamneji Cheva Inayang. 아니 추다 류메베 수요나 거 수요열 때 계약 유창요 말로 마상인자 아니 랜더 제가 그 고담나라 샤죠 수요저로고 얘기 말했어. 그 계열을 가지고 추다 류체고 추다 류체나 그 계기로 와서 제가 대대인도 소사 지장당 소다버데 마데나 아니 랜더 제가 사병 간부나 시에서 빼지 않은 송구열에 손을
The adepts among spiritual mentors that make up the Kadamba tradition, Kadamba that is the new Kadamba and the old Kadamba, the tradition speaks of practice without the practice of purification, accumulation, and petitioning as a seed without the moisture that it requires. A seed without moisture will never germinate. If one practices but fails to engage in purification, accumulation, and petition, it would be as it were to have a seed, but to place it in a dry place where there are no nutrients and there is no moisture. But that same dry seed that will not germinate in those conditions, when it meets with nutrients and moisture will germinate.
Oh yeah. 세상다 소사 대장 개침부 이봐 개침부 이봐도 모션 가지고 개침부 차대 열었어. 근데 인도에는 마음도 가르쳐 와서다 두경하나도 따직 버려. 공부체가 다 하강다 가리임 바 있는다 나라도 버게 아니 준제 줘야다 되네 버게 되네 공부를 직 버게 신년이랑 돈받도야다 잠도 쳐야다 처벌 피하다. 아니 문제 피하다 대주강하다 조사 대장이 귤을 유용하게 치도라 아니 답시 되게 지기열에서
And so it is the importance of purification, accumulation, and petitioning becomes so vivid. It is the very practice that we engage in when we visit temples and we visit monasteries, and during our visits, recite prayers and go for refuge and make offerings of world mandalas. These are all practices for the purpose of bringing to fruition confession, purification, accumulation, and petitioning.
모두 정말한저 니마 인샤 투지나다 쇼게야 라원의 전에 아니 직다 냠내 제고야 차 추바 피하다 아니 직바 면럼 제외하다 돈받대 다시 면럼 돼야다 면럼 제거기 다 간다 냠내 같이 집어 있나 대주 강가로 다랑기 주민 받쳐봐당 아니 대치도라 아니 다랑기 사베 디디 바자도 바 장화체 아니 랑기 주민 받쳐 어디에 제바 있나 데데 줘야기 아니 꿀ung 쩨니 제바 있나 아니 그 주민받이 요구래. 주민받이 전화 아니 또밖에 받이 요구로 왔어. 나 또밖에 வர라. 아무 조사 대장 보고 예받이 아니 강가 상마 찍어지게 하래. 나는 강가 찍어 엄마가 라마줄로 요한나지. 나는 칠 지주기 냠내 받을라야. 나다 빼대 말마도 찍어지게 하래. 세다 근데 이거 말아서 니샤 투지가 나랑게 자와 고순 자와 제가 강가 아니 랑게 주민받이 빌어 그렇도와. 근데 그치도 아니 당분간 꿀ung주 무엇이가도래 삼바마이와 조도야 뒷말람다 어디서 계신 것이라 요래서
Then in our daily and nightly practices, those practices that are continuous, that go on day and night for us, they're the practices of making offerings, reciting prayers, a whole host of practices, any number of conceivable practices. All are for the purpose of ripening the continuum, ripening our minds, so that as part of the process of ripening the mind, negativities may be purified. When negativities are purified, the mind is ripening. And when the mind, when the purpose of one's practice, when the intention behind one's practice is to ripen the mind so that the mind may develop realization, when the mind ripens, then the realizations arise. And that is the arising of realization is the result of engaging in practices of purification, accumulation, and petitioning. And so we take as our example these forebears, the adepts of the past, who made an example of themselves and engaged in these strenuous practices of accumulation, purification, and petitioning. And we too, day and night in our activities, may adjust our intention to direct activities of practice toward the ripening of the mind. And this is the adjustment of the intention. And then in the actual meditation practice itself, the meditation is in a disciplined way, undistracted. And then in conclusion, one dedicates the virtue of that practice.
Oh yeah, that sajang so devati. And it's just like you did the talkings, that means that you are the talkings. So that's talking the talking in the catch with Yibata. And it's talking Gombala Tene. And any Pageta and you talk what you do Jiggy Yobata or today you do Sheba Chen and it's always in Gomne and in Yamne and the data Giorgio Danaya that is going to Shubanashi subject to the Cheba Simba the nature and call it maintain to send the subject through the Sheba Untangi or resonance.
So then it is the practices of accumulation, purification, and petitioning that take place in the field of merit itself, in reliance upon the field of merit. For this very reason, the merit field is emphasized. It's emphasized and made prominent in these practices, in these preliminary practices. For if one meditates upon the merit field, then one swiftly develops realization. For this reason, then, of these preliminary practices, a fourth practice is emphasized and made prominent, and that is the practice of petitioning the merit field.
Oh yeah, that call it so we sings means that or mean the call of so we sings or mean tagoya than mean younger at the Karesna. Tang around so what you do care lot so side neck so the way that call it so we sings you get that your resonance.
This field is called the merit field for a reason. The reason is this field creates the condition for the swift arising of realization in the mind. It does this as it supports the accumulation of merit, of autonomy. It is the best support for the development of merit, and so it is called the merit field.
Oh yeah, no, been to you chipping yondala and the rang it turned out. Which gave out that the Gandesu turned out upside sings in the color sings in mental to us or call about sovereign tablet to which you are the dig and call it sings in mental and call it jetty chido or when she got it to Doya, which you give you by shoes as was the top which you tell up any Paganda jetty chigo to us or Tita Chiba.
This is the same as the esteem in which we hold the fertile ground that we are able to plant crops in and see them ripen such that we then enjoy bountiful harvests. When the ground is productive and we are assured that it will produce good harvests, we conserve that ground becomes invaluable to us and we call it a field and a fertile field for us.
Oh yeah, today you done around the Tana Sojan, Sarjan chair, the Sunday chair, Yibudi, and the Chebaina, and Telatene, and a Telene to Chebaina, and a Telatene Rangita. Kanda you de Chebachi Chatan Chigi over was it, Chigi Yuva, Kaji Shingla Nashi, Telayan, so we sings, or petty the Chiwajan, the Sumi or Reson.
Now if upon the field of merit, one engages in accumulation and purification and petitioning. If one emphasizes these practices in support based upon this merit field, then quickly extraordinary qualities are produced in the mind. It is, as it were, this field of support for the practices of accumulation, purification, and petitioning were very fertile, a fertile field. It's a fertile field for the production of merit. So it is given this name, the merit field.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. Singla tendo tabayina, tendo tela, sayores. Tendo bengat, talo tendo tigas, mango, talo yago chons, mango chons, and talo yago chomasons, kanda, tendo kazu pat, singla tendo tap, sabian tap sane, and to tendo chunga de la sedan, the Suzu say Jetuya yores. Sedan said to the Yoris, Sedan around the so we sing de la tabne, sing de la rangi, Yamsland, and it pages Tabayina. So they saw Sajan Che, and this when the Chevayina, and it gave it to say your maresons.
Ordinarily, when we plant a field, we see its harvest, and we can measure the harvest. And later we can say, this year was a good harvest, the year before was not so good. In any case, one plants, one harvests, and then there's some measure, a standard of its productivity. For the merit field, there is no measuring the productivity. If one plants that field, that is, if one supplicates the merit field by engaging in accumulation, purification, and petitioning the merit field, that seed ripens in a harvest of which there is no measure.
Oh, yeah, then I did be singler, and it turned out lodging on a 2 or 2 sheet, and it 2 chingmod part, 2 chingmod to Yongumaras, 2 really Yongumaras. That the Singi Cheberton, Sing de la Tangazutan, Tsog, Sing de la Tene, and Ragasabatabaina, 2 she Kaduina Yang, and it Jebuchunga Yoba, or the day yours, and it did not sing that. Kandarat Page Suzuki signal around Singlaina, Tendo, that sing Yapoina, and it forget Tendo Yapoyong at the Sing Dujaina, Tendo Patabatean, but Tandu Magia Yorwa, the Tadis around the talk Sing de la Ten, and the Chabarkan Yomars, Kanda Suzuki, Yamne Chetsawaina, and Tibuka doing Jungshiba. Did you Chumar say, did the 2 Chabar level Kaduina, which Mujuma, or the dig Chabarchan response?
Ordinarily, one plants in one season, a harvest is done in one season. There are 4 seasons, but a field will only be productive during one. Differently, the merit field, when one has planted it, yields during all 4 seasons. It isn't the sort of field, the ordinary sort of field, where if it is poor quality soil, then the crops won't be as productive. If it is good quality soil, then the crops are more productive. In this case, the merit field is so fertile that it is entirely different from an ordinary field. If one practices, if one seeds it through practice, then the harvest will be continuous. It isn't as though you would ever say, after practicing and petitioning the merit field, that now it is productive, now it is not.
Oh, you do that, Maranzo Pena Shingia, what is Yobaina? Chitini come Shingia, what you were not Matam Tabaina, Pagan Sing Tabe Ramason, Petalut Pesas, and Sing Tolados, Sendri Ross. In a court, Tendo Pachik and Suchi Kiger Modeleke Marasta, and the Tsog Sing Dilla. Rang Sajat is a best, Sunday Majiba Yina, and in Beta, Telejan Pangarest. Around the Chidingi Singtam, the Pango Yuba Telejan, around the Talent Bay. So we sing la, and in Pagi Sajanta, Sunday to Majiba Yina, and Hajan Pangores, and the Rang Bay you did Chet Papa to Tobiag. In the top matter what the checker was that she have Pangores, said another sing it to Latin, and in Yamne Chedi. 다른 거나도 냠내는 대체매가 즉 랑이 냠내는 치투가 있나 윤대 그 거두이네 중요해요 봐. 대야배 윤대 숨치고 중요해요 봐. 신 개발지이다. 아니 콜라 소비 신신. 규제 드리고나니 배자기 어려서
The ordinary field, when we leave it fallow, upon leaving it fallow, we will lament that we didn't have the time to plant it, that it's too bad that it's left fallow and goes to waste during the season, and then we're anxious about it. When we're anxious in this way, we're anxious too then, or rather it is all the more shameful, all the more a shame if the merit field is left fallow. That is, if there is the merit field, yet we fail to practice purification and accumulation and petition the merit field, the situation is even worse than leaving an ordinary field fallow if one allows the merit field to go to waste. So if one fails to purify, practice purification and accumulation and petition the merit field, that is a great loss, because what is lost is the production, the development of extraordinary qualities, the achievement of those qualities. For this reason, then, the importance of practice. There's no measure of the yield that follows from it. It is a yield that is continuous during all times. The yield is the very best of qualities. And so for this reason, we call this field the merit field.
그래서 딱 한다 둘 신기 간다 간다 소신 딜라 때문에 하게 아니 밖에 지구답에 수연답에로 중앙이나 아니 디질레 저 탐제세도 델레 탐제게 세디기 아니 랑기 자와 루비아다 세치 조 세치마 아니 대한 뒤시 탐제도 빼면서 뒤뒤 이배 소놈 사게 뒤뒤 소놈 사게 말했어야 되게 개발하면 봐 가두 뺐다바 이나양 제부께 여봐 어디게 뺐 삼지 미자바 인디 아니 가라도 다 냠내 딜라야 개침부치네 아니 냠내 나고래 해서
By the power of the merit field, when it is planted through the practice of petitioning the field, that field becomes the source for all good qualities. Good qualities experienced in this life as good fortune, success in all of one's activities, but also and especially in future lives. And this productivity of this merit field, the power of the merit field, is unimaginable. It is continuous. What it produces is unimaginable. And so for that reason, the merit field is extraordinarily important and one must practice it.
예, 다시 근데 속이 신딜라 때는 아니 사번 답에는 낼 하고 요봐. 사번 답네 아니 배 제부 중요해 배 도야 매봐. 랍체부 근데 요봐 되라. 아니 사번 마담이 샤바이나 하장이 방보를 했어. 아니 근데 사번 마담이 샤바이나 아니 만아도 신기 속이 신딜라 배 신 탐에 배 뒤시담에 매바디 만아도 다 수수 밀루자 전부디 아니 동세도 담아 차기 요래 재산 뒤에 아니 냠내 소신이 냠내 제디 내하고 지나 배에 전부 아니 라라도 또봐 유도기야 탑 상쇼 어딘데 이리 아니 소신이 소신아 아니 바게 다 세타베디 근데 제디 시나고 개침을 했습니다.
Through practice of petitioning the merit field, when one plants that merit field, the results are inexhaustible. When this is the case, yet one fails to petition that merit field, it is a shame, for what one loses are all of these inexhaustible, extraordinary results. Leaving this merit field fallow, then, is a greater shame than leaving an ordinary field fallow, because what it amounts to is the emptying of the precious human rebirth, of the opportunity that it offers. But on the other hand, when the merit field is petitioned, then the results that flow from that flow easily. The benefits are innumerous. And one swiftly develops realization in one's mind. It is the very best method for the development of realization. So we plant that merit field, we petition that merit field.
Oh, yeah, that's what you said about the kitchen, but in but in the Inas, down that's what you say, can this double race? That's what it is, what it is. That's what you did, the beauty can this shower race. Now that's what you said about the Lata, Chidanta, Lama Susu with Namlanda, and it's in the year that under Yonda to Chong out the day, Giorgio got so you said that and in Yulamdi, and in other training you were into, and in Yulam she's which should be your race.
What follows then is the actual means for petitioning the merit field. A description of how it is that one petitions the merit field. Ordinarily, there are in the various lineages of practice, various techniques for petitioning the merit field. But a universal, or rather most general technique for petitioning the merit field, the one involved in the 6 preliminary practices, the one drawn from the swift path, is the technique that is conjoined with the practice of the secret mantrayana.
Oh, yeah, that's so she. This is that you learn as you do some of that so she might give Honla Tanga to carry some cars, the Kazan to Joju Subakabula. Give you set up your resume, give you Jamru Chisaki, you give you set up your bike to give you that the Kazan Mata Lama Mata, Dine Lama Tengache, Dine Idam Tengache, Dine Dimajin Lama Yidam Sanje Tenga Yor. That did it because I gave him which set up Shayua. Oh, yes, that's so she said Mata will give you the suit. You want to do Google. I did under dig up to the Dudu most sum your mares. Just not do the chicken or a yes.
Following the swift path, before one petitions the merit field, the refuge field will remain visualized and needs to be closed, brought to its conclusion, or withdrawn from visualization. As part of the 3rd preliminary practice, you'll remember going for refuge to the particular personages, particular persons, visualized, as we described at length, as 5 sets of gurus, 5 sets of tutelary deities or yidam, 5 sets of Buddhas. All of these have been visualized, haven't they? They will remain, but need to be closed as a visualization. So one must know how to close that visualization before proceeding into the technique for petitioning the merit field.
Oh, yeah, that. So, give you do it, give you part to Tamu, give you things, but to part just me watch it, set up. Any give you what said that, pocket do shasham to do good. Just a duya de la, sit down on the give you to that delaya. Any remember which yours. Just that you could do ya de la mango you do, Susukari, do not dig you by you do, any give you do ya de. Lost Masuma.
In Samadhi, one has emanated, one has produced and visualized the refuge. This visualization has been supplicated and then must be closed or brought to an end. There are different ways for bringing to an end the visualization. Out of many various techniques for closing this visualization, any one of them may be practiced, but should be known first.
Oh, yeah, that means the round to Tiba. Me, the pocket, and the Javu said about the round to Timney, me watch it on chick. Young me we get them, don't want you, but never chat to us, me watch it, chicks it. Young Javu to do any Tiruata, need this one, Tambodi, Tambod Galaso, me some to Timiachi, nobody, me we get them, don't want you all, but never chat to us. Somebody that social set up the Ishiba, this one, that gave you Nagara set up as well. Gave you Nangar take the social 소신 세탑 시내 20을 주는 디마스 알았다. 데레다 개위지서 다당아도 소 다이 개위지 세탑이어와 다도 소신 세탑이어 딜마 이 담지 20선부터 담지 선부터 디마나지 제도 오예 근데 미워치당 숨 좀만 근데 요와 인자 아니 수수 가르치는 되게 요와 인데 아니 뒤수 로스 마송 알아서
Of the various ways that the visualization of the refuge may be closed or dissolved, three in particular are described. The first is, as one has visualized the refuge, one may dissolve the refuge into oneself through the space between one's eyebrows. That is the first technique. The second is to seal the visualized refuge in emptiness. That is, to make that visualized refuge now non-referential in emptiness. The third is, as the refuge has been visualized in space, that refuge visualized in space may be imagined to rise upward, and not until the petitioning of the merit field requires the redescent of the wisdom being so that it occupies the commitment being. Until that moment, the refuge remains unseen high in the sky, but then descends into the commitment beings in the merit field. There are these three techniques.
Oh, yeah, that pena also the junior nature, pena sound to Banyamnechina. Any Javu some Javu set up. Any Javu the Tama to do rounds to make some to make some to Tim Jarosa. Make some to Timbasin Yamnet, Javu Tim down, he said. That Jim Netching it over Ibaina. Any Mimi, you get up, Mimi get them, Tombaning or by Yevaset. That the joke Yamneching it, Javu Nangala thing, first Susu. Upsala good Shagro, Nangal thing Shagro. Or the young of Javu to dance, she do some Sunday, some Javu to dance, or the days of some others, Jalandido, Karichena, and Suzu Javu Jambu. Me watch it, Jambu Javu set up Yan to do some or Karichena and Digi or Resums.
Customarily, in the practice of the Guya Samaja, the visualized refuge dissolves into one's eyebrows, the space between one's eyebrows. This is the practice in the Guya Samaja. In the practice of Yamantaka, it is the second technique in which the refuge becomes sealed in emptiness, non-referential, and vanishes in non-referentiality. And the third technique is practiced in the Chakra Samvara Tantra, in which the visualized refuge levitates and rises into the sky overhead. These three techniques, whichever of them one chooses, one may practice as the means for technique for closing the visualization of the refuge.
Oh, yeah, that in ma, that did Javu say Taviara, that's Sashi Chinji Labana. And in a Sashi Chinji Labana, that's what you said to murder rest, and did Mamma Wutu entering up to do tongue. The machine and Chavas shed hard as I did to Dutch Jimana shed overseas. Jamas in the Shaggy and drink was in the shop. And he gave you said of a Gobat, gave you said of a parent, Gobata, or any gave you to give Soshing say mother want to give you said of it, gave you to do. Oh, this one you got entering on the shiver response.
What follows now is the blessing of the ground and the actual petitioning of the merit field. These practices are extensive, and if I were to try to get started with them now, I would probably only get through half of the material. So allow me to resume this presentation next week. And for now, recall the principal points from today's lesson, namely the purpose behind the merit field, petitioning the merit field, what the value of the merit field is, and then before visualizing the merit field, the three techniques for closing the preceding visualization of the refuge. So then we will conclude here for today, and where there are doubts or uncertainties, we can address those in our usual question and answer now. And I think that the question and answer is very constructive.
Yes, I.
What's the third method to close the visualization, visualize the refuge?
아니, 듀스 숨바디 가르래.
아니, 난갈 코랑 장내 되게. 그런데 다 너무 간에 마 텐디션 되가라는 되게 줘라. 자야지. 어디를 해서.
That third technique is for the visualized refuge field to rise, as it were, to be lifted deep into space overhead.
지처럼 들으래. 다디 어저께 좀 되게 산디지에서 저다 나 저거 나와. 아 저거도 나도 좀 봐. 사운드 밖에 나도 좀 봐. 그런 또 이제 꿀을 생각하는 수도 아니 또经过的就不是注下了是对对怎么让了就定设的名上就定下了是吧他直接cho送对怎么让你都直接给了的아니电的对没经过上对了吧되게 강한 미미미 계획감을 동방을 때 매버선 동방서 샤 아 대저고 초고 송도 아니 꿀 대저 꿀을经过注意的经过的맞두버진 샤샤라
맞았어.
그 당고 가 주시 되가라는 그 내가 샤샤라 어쨌든 어떤 연매치들이 되가라 뭐야 그래서
When the Buddha Shakyamuni turned the wheel of the secret Mantrayana, he turned the wheel of the secret Mantrayana in the form of Vajradhara. And in the practice of the Guhya Samaja, when the Buddha Shakyamuni took the form of Vajradhara, having emanated the mandala at the conclusion of the turning of the wheel of the secret Mantrayana of the Guhya Samaja, he withdrew the mandala in through the space between his eyebrows. When the Buddha Shakyamuni taught Yamantaka and took the form of Yamantaka himself, the mandala that Yamantaka emanated, the mandala that is the support and the supported, was closed through its vanishing into non-referentiality. And then the Chakra Samvara, when Shakyamuni appeared as Chakra Samvara, the mandala that Chakra Samvara emanated was left only lifted up.
Yes,
So just to clarify. Okay, change and then remains.
Quite certainly.
You mentioned something about the commitment themes. That stage that is resolved into the commitment themes or.
The machine,
So this whole visualization of the five thrones and everything just levitates into space and then they continue underneath it.
예식이 셈바디 제일 밥 용도로
제가 소신 세다 그러와 소신 세다도 들으면 좀 하서 어디 저랑 단단히 선물이 대조 그냥 매칭해도 아니 교육 세다 제마 소신 세다도 그럴만 담직 셈바데 이시 셈바데 예세바 띵이 셈바 띵고로
That the and yeshi sympathy and damn symbol of them. Damn symbol and
어디만 나시지 거다. 여기 여기 되게 조심되는 거 맞습니다.
Yes, the refuge, the visualized refuge, it rises in the space, but then remains. And then for those of you who practice the chakra samvara, this is a technique in the chakra samvara. The refuge remains. And then after the petitioning of the merit field, there comes the moment when of the triple being of the wisdom being and the commitment being and the samadhi being, the wisdom being dissolves into, merges with the commitment being merges with the samadhi being.
아니 그래서 세워 마찬가지로 산이 소시 먼저 무시 세트 주가들라 셈바 숨지게 되시게 되는데 그 세워 연구해서
And if any of this is unclear at this point, the actual process that involves the three sattva beings, the triple sattva, will be elaborated. Any yeshiki sympathy mar, any tamsik sympathy, then the any things about just
yeah. 뭐야, 레신 봐야 아.
any others.
Yeah, pengaless. 아들, 니가
Looks like
Thank you, Lama. I have a question. After taking refuge vows, the vow to not, I just want some clarity, the vow to not kill, what if on accident you strike an animal with your car, vehicle, once again it's an accident, and then or you step on an insect and then it is half alive or suffering. So what do you do in that kind of situation? Or is it okay to remove the suffering for them, or do you just let them be? And then if you accidentally do kill another creature, how do you, like, what can you do for that kind of to purify that?
Because the any camera don't buy yard long time the so cheve lady machive yene karisa masam shendu and check so then the short song na then what done any redactic any tone redacti any sila masila jona the social chogrebe and the donga not taking is senchik and she drodu and the donga the cellular and the social chena
양주 소바 고 제나스 양주 고 마시는 시중에서 걸어
the chogrebe
용 말았어 고 간다 마시어도 시어서는 타고로 소 전도 굴롱래로 와
no
아니 예버처지
제래
예버처로서 고 가서 당부 답이 중요하디 굴롱 요말 당부 굴롱 매버 와 굴롱 매도 콜로 소주기 무시 용고 말 다양고 다 동에도 좀 양조고 소 제가 처음에는 콜로 소주기 무시 용거랬어 그래서 콜로 가다 야비야 탑신연의 양조고 소딱 고 양조 딱그 양듯이 강에 두섬 세베 고 콜라 예버처도 뭐 중도 말해서
but the switching any 동안 날 any 데비 kengi 수수기 가르사 로팜네 아니 소치 제나 대한 예버처를
그걸 소주비 예버처로 답변한 거죠
네 또 가르사 닝제요
닝지 요때 이내다 닝지 되게 소제버대다 닝지 딱 한다 콜에 굴rum도 된 가지고 배차단 되는 배차단 니어래 손들라. 다들 그 어강의 양대자 다고 들에다 세션의 약을 썼나 양 콜라 다 간다 쉬우지 변부 체크해요 말와. 이내 다 인지 원그 수술이야. 소체버 되게 동행 용모가 용거래. 어서 인지 콜 인지 온기 오늘 심지어 소체버 온기 다 리용거래 가사. 대부 동행 용거에 뭐가 니가 용거로 와. 인지 수천부 여가 있나 그 동행 대부 동행 용모가 용식을 이내 다 거기에 간다 간다는 지금 배는 미직 나대요나 그 나서 시우 동작도 다들 세션 거기 나대월 다고 시션을 가그랬으면 콜라 두대로 갑도 세잖아 그 예버체 로로다 이내 그 동행을 미거로 와 이내도 꿀웅 숙치 좀 개발돼서 열어서 그렇지
Listen.
그래서 저번에 사마
That's all.
꿀웅이 개발지 열어서 다른 그 아우 딜레신 나대월에 시단이 야그랬으면 내가 꿀웅 못 오면나 그 예버도 제가 참 보면도 다 인지 쉬우지 인지 제대로나 아니야 예 거치고 동행 용어지 그래서
No, it wouldn't be as simple as that, an accidentally hitting an animal and then that animal being nearly dead but suffering, that it would be necessarily constructive to simply take its life. In fact, initially hitting the animal, that would be an accident. There would be no intent to take a life in that accident. So the actual intention to take a life is absent there. But then if one looks at the animal and concludes, well, it'd be better if I just killed it now, that's simply to increase the gravity of what was a non-intentional accident that inadvertently nearly took a life, change that into a deliberate act to take a life. So to merely think, well, it'd just be better now to take this life, risks grave consequences. It wouldn't even be constructive or a big benefit to one to proceed in that way. There's a difference. The salient difference is, what is most salient is the intention underlying the decision to take a life. This is a mercy killing. We call it something like a mercy killing. For instance, when we say, oh, this person's so sick now that it might be just best if they were to die, and then one provides the injection that is assisted suicide, and in that case, one may be moved to do that in two ways. One may be moved to by simply saying, this person's sick, maybe better that they die. The alternative is to be actually moved by compassion, and for that compassion to inform the decision to remove the suffering of that person. So it has to do the constructiveness of this mercy killing has to do with the underlying compassion, its presence or its absence.
그런 저들은 다시 타와 야구에는 동반이를 타가 열어서
Now, if you want, oh well.
가요. 그래서나 저런 그 렌드 쳐봐 대발라 시 삼바 조와 무시 시고는 렌자고 했어. 저는 디제도 아니 디제 마보고 그래. 아니 조와 되게 된 멋이야 말. 저는 그 시기 전에 타보시라 열었어. 당 어제 당가 꿀lungu 돈에는 대세 개발지 여버지 어디 돈은 대세 렌자고 해서.
Now, if you wanted to refine the subtlety of this examination of that action, one could do that through following the view of emptiness through its aspects of every action's basis, its intention, its implementation, and its conclusion. These four aspects inform the dimension of an action. And for the purposes of this question, as you've posed it now, I only responded by referring to intention, which is partially determinative, but for the subtlest and the most thoroughgoing explanation that would address your question, one would proceed through an examination of the basis of the intention, of the implementation, and the conclusion of the action.
Oh, yeah, that's about it.
Any other?
Yeah, that one towards the
So thank you again for teaching us that. I'm sorry to have to ask, but I forgot, or maybe was not here when you listed the objects of refuge. I seem to have forgotten the Shibidans to be considered, and maybe also the Shibidans.
맞아. 실제 받아 쓰시지. 근데 즉 가르쳐 계시기 송받대 이 송대기 아니 캡유기 케슈 캡유기 캡유라네 강당강 여버디 네 살마 안 따다 단다 챙기면도 현재가 대두 계시 대두가 메스레 그라 나콩 계시기 근데 캡유라네 가르쳐 수단 수요바 강당강 여버디 peut-être deux mesre ta disons des carrières de la année yidam 강당 강 여버디 당 아니 쇼경 강당 강 여버디 양가르치 아니 롭섬치 소르치
다 간달 아주 개뷰생도와 개뷰생들랑 생기 좀마 배 장감에와 망고 맞주니 개뷰세다가 직세 즉 당부 직세서 양쌤이 조금이나 gem류 분도 좀 어디 직삼로 담아야 수수 쌤이 개벌지가 요 말했을라 개비 군도 직삼로 담는 되게 개비 망보세다는 되게래서 되게 내가 당부 직시한 거래서 단다 개비 단다 라만 대nga 아니 되네 맞아 이담 대nga 되네 상지 대nga 되네 수마들라야 대nga 요요 아니 디네 기두들라 대가 어디에 고 미국 지당 전에다 디스파이 개보 영향을 지도 잠깐만 못 잡네 시에버레스 야 다가 건두가가 민다도 가가 요르데 이네 고두 잡아 망보 요버데 주 찍어 주 고매 야 미국이 망보 잡는 공고야 이도 수도 땡기지 미국 장야 지도 근데 공고 요래서
Now, of first importance is the recognition that in the picturing of the refuge, one pictures innumerable objects of refuge when one is able to, when one has that ability through samadhi. When one does not have the ability to do that through samadhi, it is sufficient to concentrate what would be the plethora of objects of refuge into one, the concentration of all refuges into the one person of the guru. Fundamentally, there's no difference between the vast array of objects of refuge and all objects of refuge contained in one's guru. So that is the first point to understand. And then from that, when one is able to picture the variety of objects of refuge, that variety is organized into 5 groups of gurus, 5 groups of tutelary deities, 5 groups of Buddhas, 5 groups of the Sangha and the rest, protectors and the rest. And this is the extensive visualization. And all of these objects of refuge have their unique names, but they may be all contained in the one concentration of all refuges. The purpose of the variety, that one fans out the variety of objects of refuge, is for the exercise of samadhi.
그래서 다들 또 거기 라마 대가들이랑 해디어라스 라마 대가지 이제라다 되는 산지들라 기던 규디식 산지 시어와 대가라 초 주부지 아이바 산지세 아니 최대라야 안 대쟁아요다 최대라디 다 디바 티보숨비 최숨제 대가라 꽤마마다 이제好像提前的了吧，以前也有一提不当， 유치단 디비추스 니와 쉐드나 디선
그래서 아니 택바숨당 아니 상악당 아니
니도 라지게 니도 라지 되게 되게 되라 아 돈이제 맞죠 예 다들 긴두들라야 아니 니도 긴두 라지 긴두 되게 긴두제 네가 보고 간도 아니 주jo 송마스나 어딘가라 긴두 된가스 어디 때문에 그런 것도 개비세다에 개비도 두두나 가르쳐 라마들랑 같이 산지들랑 같이 아니 최들랑 같이 아니 긴두들랑 같이 어디 개비세도 개버도 어디다 그래서
these sets of five sets of gurus, that's the first set of 5. Then the 5 sets of Buddhas are the Buddhas of the 4 classes of Tantra. And the 5th Buddha is the supreme Nirmanakaya form Buddha. So the 5 groups of Buddhas are the Buddhas from the 4 classes of Tantra plus the supreme Nirmanakaya form Buddha. Then the 5 dharmas are, the 5 dharmas are the dharmas of the 3 vehicles. The first vehicle being the Shravaka vehicle, so the dharma of the Shravaka vehicle. Then the dharma of the Pracheka Buddha vehicle. And then within the dharma of the Mahayana vehicle, that Mahayana vehicle has 2 components, the Mantrayana and the Sutrayana, coming to 5. Within the Mantrayana itself, there's the causal vehicle and the resultant vehicle. Or rather, the resultant vehicle is the Mantrayana and the causal vehicle, Sutrayana. So these come to 5. And then the Sangha too is 5. The Sangha of the Shravakayana, Prachekayana, Pracheka Buddhayana, that is the Shravakas, the Pracheka Buddhas, and then the Bodhisattvas, and then the Dakas and Dakinis, and the protectors. The Dakas and Dakinis are one together. The protectors are one together. And then the Pracheka Buddhas, Shravakas, and the Bodhisattvas are the 3 others. Okay, so that's the review of that and of the 5 groups, of the organization of those in the 5 groups. And we're going to conclude here for today and recite our closing prayer.
Lome mare je don do ye na re jave ombo da je tema zumbe zera kunde ya jave yang ji zewe je so ne tembe remba kusan amji cho jene drube jena ni je jo rage shishin tobe lamji ne shuja zewe changwe kage Roe ije munga seje ne jave temba yun zengyoche temba reje choje majaba chaja nyamba gyure chode ne ije chembe yira jeba yi pende teje sewa jeba shu seje jave mejun chele le ju chanju lanje rembe ja Adu namji yila pede she jave zeba rindu yonjuji Dansan drube tuyen ruje je gege seje nidam Sera kundu jave ngapa yi namda namda java maju. Kanze tibo zola juju je zuje rula sumba de. Tuden maje tadu goje je jaji jadu chugu ji.
From my two collections, vast is space that I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds, wisdom I am blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, mantra Shri. May I find the best of the paths of the complete teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path and sight of discernment. May I hold the teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to aid all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and themselves. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths, never be parted any of their lives from the purest path raised by the Buddha. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always assist the divine mighty ones with the damages of prosperity spread everywhere.
Dagi jini zabe jewa di tendan doha Kevara jesu losan rabang yi tenbe nimbo rindu senje shu Li rawe korwe shingan de tenda dewa malu Jere zewa tenze yazo yi shabe sidi badu tenyu Jambe bawo jira chemba na kundu sambo te yang te shen Eda gunje jesu dalo je jewa dida tamje radu mo Yuzo shebe jawa tamje je ngowa kanga sudu mapa de Laji jebe zawa digun jang sambo cheje radu mo ji Semcho Memboje Majevan Yawa Yamba Meva Modu
I dedicate whatever virtues I've ever collected for the benefit of teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Chakra to shine forever. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chinas and Tins and Gyatso, please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Mantra Shri and Samanta Bhadra realize things as they are. Also, I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the victorious thus gone ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. May the supreme jewel of Bodhicitta that has not arisen rise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Thank you, everybody. So there might be some food and some tea outside, and we can enjoy that together. But I don't know what the weather looks like.
Yeah.